I would like to solve today a problem that is already a long-standing open problem in the science and practice of modeling. It is in which case is something a model, or in which case something cannot be a model, or something could be enhanced to become a model. We distinguish for this reason unmodels that will be never models, non-models that have no chance to be a model, pre-models that might be enhanced, proto-models that are at least models for some purposes, perception models that are quality models, conceptual models that are models that have been enhanced by concepts, or models in a model suite. There is quite a lot of different variants. Let us consider some examples first. IKEA typically provides an instruction model leaflet. They are described how you can construct, let's say, a shelf. In this case, IKEA provides some hints what you should not do. You should not work alone. You should, if you have a problem, contact IKEA. Then you can step by step construct a shelf following the instruction model. The instruction model is pretty clever, but in this case you know only the instruction, nothing else. Another case of a model is a database structuring model as a description model. For instance, for, let's say, booking.com, you would like to have information about hotel chains, hotels in a hotel chain, rooms in a hotel. Hotels in a chain are typically additionally characterized by a location, might have also some kind of additional characteristics, and a guest or an agent of a guest can book a hotel room type. And in this case, a guest might have to pay a certain rate. So this model describes what could be presented in some booking.com database. It is nothing more than giving you the structures you can rely and use. You might have other models. For instance, you might have a model of how to behave in a certain way. Or you might have something from fine arts. Or you might have a model to memorize, as a memory, let's say St. Bernard. Or you might consider even pictures from fine art to be a model, but in this case we should know what it means. Most of these models are models for communication. Models for communication means in this case you get a support for communicating in a proper way. You might have also models for trade. A chair is a chair, but in an exhibition for trade it is a model. Or you might have also models, let's say architectural models of a house, like in the ancient Egypt sense, or in the modern sense. They are informative for customers. You might have also models for negotiation, as it is shown here. Okay. Are these informative models in order to reason on those things? I think not. That means in this case we learn already that sometimes models provide only a very limited range of usage scenarios. The classical joke everybody knows are these girls models. They are called models. Maybe they are models, but in this case we should know what is the hidden sense. You have also maybe molds, production forms used for producing something. You might have also models for replication, like this figure of Nefertiti that is used to somehow to construct a lot of Nefertitis. Or you might think whether for a little child, for a baby, a little child has a model of a mother. Okay, you might have also other models. For instance, the classical Japanese way of easy explanation, what is in the food. Or models as a blueprint. Or models to solve scientific problems. Or models that are investigation models. Or let's say our first analog computer developed for Earth and cosmology 2,500 years ago. Or you might have models for problem solving, or for equations for economics. All these are models, but with a limited application range. That means we have learned all these things have been used as instruments, and as instruments they are used then as models for a certain purpose. Models have some origins that are reflected and inherited. Models might be or should be analogous to something. Models must be well-formed or beautiful. Models can be language-backed. In this case, you inherit the problems of the given language. Models should be small, economic, parsimonious, so that you can really rely on the model and have very small things to do. Models should be somehow trustful. For this reason, if we use an instrument, then we should know whether we can trust on that instrument and what is the background so that we can really rely on that. It means we need a justification. Models inherit the deep thought behind. Think about the classical example with the model girls. There is a culture model behind. And this is a deep thought behind. Models are often based on molds. Models should not be necessarily consistent. The most important part is that the model is somehow coherent. And I claim that models are also our first instrument before we can use a language. Think about the little child that has a model of a mother and a father, and this model of the mother and the father is completely different from the model of the father of our mother in the neighborhood. That means we should have proper models. Proper models could be good models, well developed, like analysis models or learning models or system construction models. In this case, we know what is the requirement. The requirement is that they properly function. However, we might have also models that are somehow only functioning in a very restricted scenario. Informative models should provide quick information, like an instruction leaflet. Of course, they have a stored background, business rules, user customization, and anything else, but they are only informing. Forecast and retrospection models have, of course, to be of a good quality for the forecast or the retrospection, but only in a limited case. That means you have to know how to rely on those. Guidance models. They are helping us in activities based on the experiences we got. Inspiration models. Of course, we can use, in this case, donors, so that we can use the models to help us. And I think we have 101 different tolerable models, and I show here a small list of four aspects of models. One is presentation, the other one is providing activity, supporting activities, one is explanation, the other one is orientation. For instance, for explanation we have investigation models, thought models, mental models, cognitive models, conceptual models, conceptual models, rational models, scientific models, formal models, anything what you would like to have here. In the social sphere we are using also widely models. So you have social models, you have orientation models, you have of course also personality models, you might have metaphoric models, you might have also daily life models, exchange models, society models. You might have also manipulation models in this case. As long as we know what we should tolerate and what we should not tolerate, these models are somehow good for us. However, we might have also bad models. I would say non-models. That means in this case we need a characterization. What is a non-model? We have a lot of such bad models in daily life, and I would claim beyond the 101 tolerable models you have the same amount of bad models. You have conduct models. For instance, we said in the last time, the science tells us. It was usage of some models, and later you claim we didn't know it better. And finally, you have also ugly models, unmodels. They are not even instruments. However, some people tell you the model says that. Mostly these are manipulation models or expert fairy tales. And in this case we have far more things that are presented as a model, but in reality they are not a model. What we know now, however, is we need to know what is a model, when it is a model, for whom it is a model, and for how long. Okay, it would be nice to have a model notion first. The model notion we have been developing over 15 years in Kiel considers a model is an instrument. It should be well formed, it should be adequate and dependable. It represents origins and functions in utilization scenarios. Adequacy has again three different facets. It should be analogous, it should be more focused so that you don't have to consider the whole origin as one thing. You can concentrate on what you want, and it should be purposeful, useful. And what is typically forgotten is the model should be dependable. Whatever you do with the model should be somehow reliable. That means in this case you need a justification, and the model should be of sufficient quality. We have been representing this model being, or this model notion, by our model house. You have, of course, the utilization scenarios. From the other side you have the grounding and foundation of the model. You have also development methods. You have, of course, also utilization methods. And the model represents origins within a given context for some community of practice and has its profile. We compiled the summary of Kiel research on archaeology models, art models and sports science models in this monograph, unfortunately in German language, but anyway, it shows, however, what a model is. But now again we stated what is a model, and now we need, of course, some kind of demarcation. What is not really a model, or what should be required that something can become a model. And we use in this case a meta model. Before coming to it, I would like to give a warning sign. Adequacy is typically considered in most of the papers. You have the classical Stachowiak or Mar approaches, having a mapping property, have a truncation property, have a pragmatical property. That means it is useful. In our Kiel approach, we said, okay, fine, adequacy is necessary. It should be analogous, it should be focused, it should be purposeful. But more importantly, the model should be dependable, justified in a proper way, so you have a corroboration. It should be rational, coherent and conform. It should be evident, and it should be resilient and robust, so you don't have to change at any moment when you have new origins to reconsider the model. And finally, you should have a model of sufficient quality that is checked and evaluated. That means if you look here, you see dependability is often forgotten, but in reality it is as important as the upper part of the iceberg. So now we tackle the problem, what is a model? First of all, maybe what is an instrument? Bernd Marr said in one of his last works, the model being is the basis of a general model theory. You might have to develop a model. So we have to answer the question, when is something suitable and appropriate as a model? Under what circumstances? For what? For whom? When? Why? Why not? And this means, in this case, we need to have some kind of meta-model of the model being. In this case, we use now a trick. A model should function in an application scenario, in an application in general. A model should allow to handle things. Oh, then we have a concern. A model should have maybe, or should support a goal, should function, should be useful. That means in this case, we should have maybe a way how to characterize the model being and the instrument being. In this case, we use a meta model now. Let's look for our database development first. In database development, we say, okay, fine, we have originally, of course, some kind of need to develop, let's say, a proper database. Let's say an object relational database structure according to the current application. Of course, within the viewpoints of our business user community. What we need now is a harmonized structurization. That is, we say what is why and of interest and of value for a community of practice. That means we are trying to have a structurization of the object relational data we should have in the database. In this case, we say, okay, fine, then we would like to have as a goal an object relational structuring based on some sphere how to represent this structuring. That means we say what is where, when, for whom, where, this. And then we should be able to somehow to establish a database model. That means in this case we have a purpose. We say what is how, when, by what means and where at. That means additionally we should have some means to handle things in a proper way. And then we might have a database structure description model. In this case, the function of the model is who and how we do something, when, where, and what way, whereabout. That means in this case we have classically a greenfield scenario where we are using our model for communication and negotiation, for paraphrasing, for common understanding, and we would like to have a proper way to understand it. But in this case it is greenfield database structure modeling, because of we start from scratch. Okay, can we generalize this picture? Yes, we can. In this case we have a general picture of the model being. we have a live case in which we would like to have to use this model. We have a common practice. We have in this case a community of practice interested in. The goal is now, based on this concern, somehow trying to establish this model in some sphere of consideration, of reflection, of viewing. We could have in this case, let's say, a static state base or maybe a dynamic state base, whatever you want. And the purpose is nothing else as we add now to our concern and goal the means, maybe from a workshop, from evolved knowledge and from progress, so that we can use it in a proper way. And the function is then, or the model should function in a scenario in which the model is going to be used. So in this case we have now model properties. A suitable instrument needs, of course, the application cases and the community of practice. The potential usefulness is measured with a view on the concern within a universe of interest, of a universe of concern. The adequacy with these three properties is nothing else as you have some kind of understanding what is the anatomy of a model. Dependability means, in this case, our workshop should give us the possibility to handle the problem with a model in a proper way. And of course, it should function in a scenario. That means there is nothing else as a potential and capacity supportable by the model. We call it power. And in application scenarios, it should be successful, applicable, and it should be efficiency. That means in this case, we can use a way how we have been handling in the past for websites. We have some kind of live cases. We have a usage of a model by the community of practice or by some members of the community of practice in such a way that we can handle it in a proper way. That means in this case, our model should be somehow well configured. In the EGC 2023, I provided you with a worksheet meta model by handling this kind of diamond. You say which origins are of interest in context of the application landscape. You say what are my goals, concerns, purposes, what are the functions I would like to have. In this case, the model is used as an instrument. That means we have now the main drivers, origins, our concerns, and it is used as an instrument. Instrument means, in this case, it should be appropriate and it should provide the right utility. It should, of course, allow us to abstract and to design, at least this is an illusion, and it should provide some kind of, or some way of using it. We call it maybe journey of a model. That means in this case you have to construct a model and then we can use a trick. The trick is you say, okay, fine, there is a formation of the model and there is a functionalization of the model for the given scenario. To make it a bit more abstract, you can say, okay, fine, there is nothing else than having this W questions answered. Where on, where with, that means formation and functionalization. Where off, where from, where at, where in. In this case you have, of course, also given not only the origins, but also your interest and your context in an application. And then means in this case we are targeting on where for, why, for what, for which reason. This could be a nice handling facility. Let's consider a typical case. You have maybe a description model. In this case, you would like to have a good prescription of as an initial specification. You can use this description model as a basis, as an origin for the prescription models. In this case, you would like to use the model later on as a blueprint, for example, for programming. You might have also other concerns for description models: discussion, negotiation, consideration. Or you might have a description model for presentation, screening, declaration. Or you might have a description model for exploration, understanding, comprehension. Or you might have maybe some way how to modify an existing system, maybe in a migration scenario. You have a lot of other models you should consider: system models, communication models, formal models, check-up models. That means in this case, when we are talking about the model being as a lesson, we have to talk about what should be really the result of the model application. That means in this case, we have some kind of worksheet based on our concern, based on the goals we would follow, supported in a proper way so that the model has a purpose, it is functioning in a scenario. That means in this case we have now nothing else as we think the model being from the end, from the concern side. That means in this case we should have an understanding of what we really want. Do we want a description for discussion, negotiation? Or do we want to have a description for development and coding? Or do we want to have a description for presentation? Or for repair and maintenance? Maybe for migration? Maybe for exploration? That means we start from some kind of insight into our concerns. And in this case, we might now derive the desired and envisioned results. For discussion and negotiation and consideration, we would like to have a proper representation so that our community of practice knows what is represented in their way of understanding, in their perspectives. Then we have, of course, a special adequacy and dependability profile the model should at least somehow support, and we have maybe specifics. For instance, if we want to have it for discussion, negotiation and consideration, we might use a localized design approach, a spotlight approach. If we want to go for development or for coding, we might have a different approach: globalized design, local viewpoints, platform biased. If we want to have it for repair and maintenance, then of course we need to map the origins in a proper way. That is not only adequacy and analogy, it is also somehow based on the decomposition within a context. That means, in this case, thinking from the end means we have a way to specify in which case a model could be a model and is maybe not sufficient to be a model or an instrument or something. And in this case, we start, if we go from the end, with some kind of usage scenario and usage stories. If you look, for instance, for the classical way, how you handle mathematical problem solving, then you go to understand the problem in a situation, then you go and explore it. Then in this case you might have to formalize it, to develop a solution. You might have to verify the solution against what you want to have. You might have a problem of evaluating this, and for this reason, of course, we might have, after verifying, to redevelop the solution. Or if we look for the usage, then in this case maybe we should start again from scratch. That means in this case we have a good number of cycles, and the model should support this kind of cycling in our user story sport space. You have a good number of different stories how to use a model. The classical illustration is typically the rational model usage based on some calculus. But you might also use, like in the IKEA case, models in an intuitive way, or for discovery, or for learning, or for orientation, or for socialization, or only for presentation, or for construction. That means we have a good number of different usage stories and scenarios to support by a model. In this case, we should look for an example. What is a conceptual model? What is not yet, or what is not a conceptual model? Is there maybe a formal notion? The answer is yes. I give you here the link to a paper that we have been developing with Heinrich Meyer. And in this case we could say, okay, fine, what will be never a conceptual model? In which scenario it will be a conceptual model? For whom? Is any model a conceptual model? What is now the mind setting behind? Maybe this example of conceptual model, it gives us also a little glimpse how to handle the model of the model being. Okay, the conceptual model is nothing else as a model plus concepts in a very slim version, in a nutshell. That means models are enhanced by concepts and become conceptual models. And that is maybe a little bit too much nutshell. Concepts from where? From a concept space. Okay, then it means that we have a model that is a concise, function-oriented consolidation of a number of maybe perception or domain situation models that integrates concepts from conceptual space. That is one version you could use to define what is a conceptual model. And it is completely different from a model that is used in simulation research. That is a concise and precise consolidation of all goal-relevant structural and behavioral features of a system that is under investigation and that is presented in a predefined format. That means in this case we have a model that is enhanced by concepts in a proper way. We have been using it to specify now what is a conceptual model. If you want to somehow to visualize it, then you can use the triptychon form. You have a learning model panel for different kinds of models you would like to consider, let's say in physics, or let's say in biology, or maybe in medicine. Then you say, okay, fine, for certain concern, the heart model is nothing else as a pump model. That is, of course, restricted to a certain concern. That means we have a way of modeling and a way of working, and you know what kind of concepts should be integrated. Most people know that in this case you have to use some kind of language, instrumentation. That means there's nothing else as a way of representation, a way of supporting. However, the most important thing is how you can use or integrate a common understanding, common notions from a university of discourse by community of practice. That means in this case you have some kind of supporting panel. That means in this case you can consider a conceptual model to have some kind of support. Okay, that is an example, again a positive example, but we should have also some kind of way to specify what is a model and what is not a model. And if you consider models as instruments, or instruments could become models, then in this case, of course, we have first to consider the model and instrument being together. How we can judge when something is an instrument, when an instrument maybe is a model. That means we have maybe to provide reasons why it is a model, or reasons why it is not an instrument or a model. Okay, that means we start with a judgment. We have here a proposal for a judgment. It is an assessment of an opinion and of course a conviction to certainty, and thus based provides some credibility so that we can use that thing as an instrument or model. We should provide first sufficient reason and grounding. We should know a proper methodology to assess and investigate that thing, whether it is an instrument or model. We should know the relativity of the judgment. We should provide an argumentation, and we should manage also exceptions and tolerance. And of course all this is driven by the landscape and the expectation, or you could also say by the culture around. Then in this case we can say, okay, fine, a judgment provides us the reason and the grounding, a belief, based on a belief to the assessment, whether something is a model, whether something is an unmodel, that means not an instrument at all, or whether it is an instrument but not a model, a non-model, whether it is a pre-model, that means we have some kind of raw models, whether it is a pre-model for the first consideration and they should be enhanced, whether it is a comprehension model, we call comprehension models proto-models, or whether it is a perception model, properly reflecting what we are thinking about, the origin within the given concern, whether it is a conceptual model, whether it is a major model in a model suite, and we should know the general reasoning system, and the general reasoning system in the world, I call it now logos, and logos with a large L. And of course in this case we have maybe a layer of a judgment. Know the background, have an evolution, know the relativity, know the judgment, and then you have also a possibility to say, yes, it is almost, but we are not really sure completely. That means in this case, we start with understanding that model being is based on the mechanism of judgment. Of course, by somebody who is sufficiently well educated to make this judgment. And they don't fall from the sky. They require really knowledge and progress. Then in this case we can now go and say, okay, fine, now I can say whether something is an instrument. An instrument should be suitable first. And of course it should enable us to satisfy the concern. Then in this case we can say, okay, fine, we can base the instrument being on a judgment on who uses what, when, where, why, in what way, and by what means. We can extend it by the W star H framework with the other W words plus the how. And the H is here the how. Then we have ends. Reasoning from the end is one of our tricks for the specification of the model being. Supporting means, we have sources, and we have an added value. And then we can say, okay, fine, if an instrument is suitable and fit, then we can reason about the quality in use, the external quality of something. We can also reason on what kind of experience is now necessary for using the model. What kind of instrument behavior we need according to the maybe to the informative models of usage. And of course, all should be based on the experience somebody has. I think this kind of engine late is not useful for everybody. The same as a set of knives. Maybe it's nice to see in a kitchen, but you should be able to use it in a proper way. So that means in this case, the instrument being is based on the suitability and the fitness, of course, based on some kind of judgment. Now we can say, okay, fine, we have an instrument. So in this case, we know now the concern, and it should help us. So it means in this case, we should know the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats short and are written as SWOT assessment of what we need to have. Then in this case you could say, okay, fine, it is some kind maybe of a good model that is strong enough to support our concern, has the right sphere for representation and consideration, has the right tool set for using in a proper way, the right means, having maybe also the right story that we can use it in a proper way. That means in this case we know now that a model being is based on our expectations and on the environment, how we should use it. And it is, of course, the model being of an instrument for which we already know the instrument being, again by judgment. Let's look on our example set. Let's say we go to the old Egypt. Is this little object a model object? Yes, it is a twofold model object. It is a model object for being in a grave to support the other life, or being a model object in a museum to tell us the story about this model being. We can have the same for the architecture, we can have the same for database development, we can have it also for process development. That means in this case we agree on the model being of maybe of the following things. But now my question, we have here four things. Are these models maybe for tool, this old adder machine, or the wall painting everybody from this area should know who is here, or maybe representing a profession, or maybe a model for guidance? Maybe in most cases you will say no, it is not a model because of our concern is not somehow supported by those. Maybe for some other reasons. Okay, then you can say now it is a good model, it is a very well developed model. So in this case we have something like an evolution cycle. We have a situation in a landscape, we have a community of practice, we have perspectives by the member of the community of practice. Then we somehow experience what we have been observing. You get maybe an intuitive pre-model. Maybe you have a proto-model of your comprehensions. You might have a concrete perception model. You can enhance this model by concepts. You can embed or somehow integrate this model in a model suite. And you can also think about the world progress and knowledge, so it can be embedded. And if it's not sufficient, then you start the cycle once more. That means models grow with their validation, become more mature, more correct, and of course they constantly change. Maybe most of you know most models are wrong. We claim the models might be wrong, but they should be intentionally useful. That means they could now characterize model majority. First is the intuitive pre-model property. Then you have proto-models for comprehension, discussion, for further development. You have perception models that are ready for use. You have conceptual models embedding in the concept spaces the community of practice is using. Maybe you have also well-engineered and ready for proper usage models. That means in this case you can now say, okay, fine, the model being is on a certain level. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could have also 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would like to restrict myself to 5 as the highest model maturity. Okay, then in this case we can now try to summarize what we have been doing so far. Summarize means, in this case, I need a model of the model being. And I would claim I have a model, a conceptual model even, of the model being. It reflects origins. It has a description of the candidate for judgment. It has model usage in scenarios. It has the derivable information we can have from the model so that our concern is somehow satisfied. And you can have a utility statement, and of course, all this is based on the judgment. That means in this case, you might have a conceptual model of the model being. That would mean that we have something like this mind map or mindset of being a model. Something is reflected. You have a description of that thing what should become a model. You have, of course, also the way how do you want to use it. You have also the expectations you would like to have from the model. So in this case, you say, okay, fine, something could be considered to be or to become a model. That means in this case you need something like a judgment. Okay, then you say this judgment of model being is now nothing else as it is made by somebody for somebody, maybe using a little trick, categorizing the models and then having some kind of pattern you can inherit, maybe specifying the function, specifying the adequacy and dependability, provide a judgment for the model being, and finally summarize what is now the way how you specify the model being. That means we have a conceptual model even for model being. So that in this case we have now for modelology, that is the science and practice of models, to model, to use models, and of modeling. We characterize it by what means that an instrument is suitable and what it means that an instrument is appropriate. We have been answering or providing some kind of framework to handle it in a proper way. That means we have, in this case, a characterization of the model being and of the non-model being as well. For this reason, I say now, okay, fine, for our study of models and modeling, we have a way how to characterize models together with their ability, their capability to be a model. We can say when something becomes a model, what is the journal of a model, in which case, let's say, the mission of a model is finished and another mission is taken into consideration. What are the characteristics of the model? What is the quality to be expected from a model? To what extent something can be used in a trusted way as a model? Which characteristics are, however, not satisfied in a proper way, and for this reason we don't consider that one as a model. Think about the ugly and the bad kinds of models here. To what extent a model becomes suitable and appropriate in a given application and when not, etc., etc. Okay, that is now concluding this open, or solving this open question: what is a model and what is not a model? Thank you. I think that is more than enough to tell you, and for this reason I should finish maybe with this overview slide. What kind of models you can consider? You can have models in, let's say, ancient Greece for as a clock of Antikythera. You can have models on, let's say, some relationships. You can have climate models or ocean models. You can have models solving a scientific question. You can have also models for exploring, let's say, in geology. You can have models for constructing things. You can have also models in economics, maybe in a mathematical way as formulas, and you can also have models explaining you what is now, let's say, under consideration about the human body, or about maybe the black hole. That means in this case you have now a way to tell to others why something is considered to be a model, how long, in which context, by whom, in what way, and then you have a good way how to handle it. I thank you now for listening to this talk, and I'm waiting now for thousands of questions that should be raised directly.